In a sign of the deepening political strain in Washington, moderate Democratic Congressman Jared Golden of Maine announced on Tuesday he will not seek another term. In a statement, the 43-year-old representative said that while he believes he could win re-election, recent events have forced him to reconsider whether the good he can do in Congress outweighs the cost to his family. Golden specifically pointed to a climate of political violence, referencing the recent murder of conservative activist Charlie Kirk and the assassination of Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota. He also laid blame on both parties for the ongoing government shutdown, which yesterday surpassed all previous records to become the longest in American history. The shutdown has furloughed hundreds of thousands of federal workers and is beginning to have a noticeable impact on the national economy. Golden, who has represented Maine's competitive 2nd congressional district since 2019, has often been a key swing vote, building a reputation for crossing party lines. His departure is seen as a significant blow to bipartisan efforts and raises concerns for Democrats as they look to defend their narrow majority in the House of Representatives. In an op-ed published in a Maine newspaper, Golden wrote that he wants to spend more time with his family, including his young daughters, away from the current political turmoil. That political turmoil was a central theme for President Donald Trump, who spoke at a business conference in Miami on Wednesday. The speech marked the one-year anniversary of his 2024 presidential election victory. The president used the occasion to sharply criticize the outcome of New York City's mayoral election, which saw Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani win the office. Trump told the audience that Democrats had, in his words, installed a communist to lead the nation's largest city. He framed the political landscape as a choice between communism and common sense, quipping that Miami could soon become a refuge for those fleeing the political climate in New York. A native New Yorker who built his real estate empire in Manhattan, Trump has frequently criticized the city's direction under Democratic leadership since changing his primary residence to Florida in 2019. Despite his harsh words, the president pledged to support the city, saying, "We'll help them a little bit." During the wide-ranging speech, Trump also touted what he described as a golden age for America under his administration, citing a strong economy, renewed manufacturing, and tighter border enforcement, claiming that trillions and trillions of dollars are flowing back into the country. He argued his administration will continue to fight for its agenda, promising that America will win, win, win. Political battles are also intensifying at the state level, particularly on the West Coast. In California, the state Republican Party has filed a federal lawsuit to block the state's newly approved congressional maps. The lawsuit, filed Wednesday morning, targets Proposition 50, a ballot measure passed by voters just this week that authorized the new district boundaries. Republicans argue that the maps represent an unconstitutional form of racial gerrymandering. Their complaint alleges that while the maps are presented as empowering Latino voters, they illegally use race as the predominant factor in drawing lines, which they claim violates the Equal Protection Clause of the U.S. Constitution. The GOP argues this unfairly benefits Democratic candidates and dilutes the power of other voting blocs. At a news conference, California Republican Party Chair Corin Rankin stated, "For us, this one is about the Constitution." The lawsuit was filed jointly by the state GOP, 18 California voters, and Republican Assemblyman David Tangipa, the state's first Polynesian legislator. They are asking the district court to issue a permanent injunction, preventing the new maps from being used in any future elections. This case will likely hinge on whether the court believes race was the primary motivating factor in the redistricting or if the maps are a legal application of the Voting Rights Act. Meanwhile, another legal battle with major political implications is unfolding in a Washington, D.C. courtroom. A federal judge on Wednesday ordered the Department of Justice to turn over all evidence in its case against former FBI Director James Comey. Magistrate Judge William Fitzpatrick has given prosecutors a tight and other information collected during the initial FBI probe into media leaks years ago. The judge's order now compels the DOJ to hand over these documents, which the defense says are critical to understanding the full context of Comey's testimony. This case revives a long-running political drama, and the newly disclosed evidence could be pivotal in determining the former FBI director's fate. And finally, the executive branch's power is being tested at the nation's highest court. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent expressed strong optimism on Tuesday, following a Supreme Court hearing on the legality of President Trump's global tariffs. Speaking on the Fox Business Network, Bessent said he is very, very optimistic and confident that the Supreme Court will overturn a lower court's ruling that declared the tariffs illegal. He claimed the plaintiffs challenging the tariffs had almost embarrassed themselves during their arguments. The case centers on the president's use of a 1977 emergency powers law to impose the duties on a global scale, a move critics argue overstepped his authority. However, the Treasury Secretary's confidence appears to contrast with observations from the hearing itself. During more than 2.5 hours of oral arguments, several justices from across the ideological spectrum reportedly asked probing questions, suggesting they were skeptical of the administration's broad interpretation of the law. Some questions indicated concern that the president was encroaching on powers explicitly granted to Congress, potentially breaching the constitutional separation of powers. The court's final decision will have profound implications, not just for international trade and the economy, but for the future scope of presidential power in matters of national and economic security.